Okay, we're going to Ottawa. Shawn Simpson joins us from TSN 1200, NHL veteran, checking in on video chat. Good morning, Simmer. How are things in the nation's capital?
Icy cold right now this morning. So we've had a pretty mild winter, but today's a little bit of frostbite.
Hey, welcome to winter in Canada, right? And in Ottawa,
exactly.
too. Simmer, we met, by the way, at the 27 Grey Cup in Ottawa. Hit it off real well. Super guy. Follow each other on Twitter.
Yeah.
Can you give us, we don't talk a lot of Senators out here in Western Canada. And since the coaching change, quite frankly, they were front and center last year at this time all year and pretty quiet right now. What's the deal with the Sens?
It has been quiet, but I guess like last year with the draft story being the fact that Colorado had the first pick, well, now all of a sudden there's Ottawa at 2, and don't look any further than the San Jose Sharks, and with Logan Couture going down, hey, there's some excitement. Excitement about DJ Smith is done, excitement about where the club is at, some of the young players, but I guess in the here and now is what is Ottawa going to do between now and the trade deadline, and I think most importantly, with players like Pajot and DeMello, are they going to re-sign them? They're going to move them? Probably, but I got to be honest with you. Been a pretty positive 6 months with the club, and I think there's a lot of excitement heading towards the draft in June.
Are you a what have you done for me lately kind of guy, or you're only as good as your last game? Because if that's the case, and what happened in Washington, what happened there?
Well, hey, they're just not good enough. I worked for the Caps in 2004, and we worked pretty hard to throw the season, and we ended up with the third worst record overall. We were going to draft the future Hall of Famer Cam Barker. Fortunately, we won the draft lottery and ended up drafting Alexander Ovechkin. So to be quite honest, this is just part of the process. Washington are the big boys. They're the Stanley Cup favorite in my estimation right now. So I don't have a problem with it. The team has been competitive. They've been organized. Kids down in Belleville are playing a ton and being improving. So as far as a rebuild, if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan or a Washington Capitals or teams that have had to do the hard lifting, this is really part of the process.
For sure. And you got to start somewhere. And I'll just ask you one last thing on the Sens. When I was out there quite a bit the last couple of years, there was a lot of talk of the new arena downtown west end of Ottawa.
Yeah.
And that's gone quiet. What's the latest there?
Yeah, it really has. There's really nothing. It's unfortunate because I think in most circumstances, you looked at this, the city wanted it, the government wanted it, the team wanted it. But unfortunately, they weren't able to get something done. Now, that land is going to be developed at LeBreton Flats. They are going to leave a segment open. I think at some point it has to happen. I would just like to think that ownership of Eugene Melnyk and the local government, at some point, some of these relationships will get a little bit better because it's a win-win for everybody. It's people that have been to Edmonton, been anywhere that you go from suburbia to downtown. This would be great for everybody involved. So right now it's on hold, but as they rebuild, let's hope they reconvene. As I said, I think at some point it'll end up happening.
By the way, breaking news on the Rod Pedersen show today. Sorry in your ears there, Simmer, but from an Ottawa connection, John Paddock's nephew, Max Paddock, it's official.
Wow.
Yeah, has been traded from the Regina Pats to the Prince Albert Raiders this morning. Everybody's on top of that. The trade deadline is tomorrow, so it's official. We'll break that down in moments. But Jared Dembar, our hockey analyst, you got a question for Shawn.
Well, I was going to ask, is there any excitement with the Senators? I mean, they're probably going to have a lottery pick this year. When you look at the guys that are going to be available, Lafreniere, he's pretty special. Yeah. There's some guys saying that Quentin Byfield they think is going to turn out even better than Lafreniere. You got Holt from the Swedish kid. You got about 4 or 5 guys that look like they could be first overall. So it doesn't matter where you pick. Is there some excitement to get another, possibly a generational player in there by next year, the year after?
No, for sure. And hey, you come off of the World Junior. I think Drysdale's stock was raised. And right here in Ottawa, Mikko Rossi has probably closed the gap more than anybody. That when you look at Ottawa, very legitimate. They could have 2 picks in the top 5 as to exactly where they will see. And the big part, if you go back to Jason Spezza being traded in 2014, moving along from Mika Zibanejad, tourist for Duchesne, flat out, the biggest question mark for this hockey team is the center ice, from the Logan Browns to the Norrises to Pajot to Tierney. And when you look at Rossi and Byfield, certainly one of those 2 players. But no, I mean, when you're trying to sell hope, last year you had a bad team, but you didn't have a draft pick. This year you might have 2 in the top 5, and I think it's one hell of a draft. So coming off of the World Junior, people excited? Absolutely.
Shawn, let me ask you this. You saw the back and forth about the Edmonton-Montreal game amongst us and the viewers today. What do you think is going to happen tonight? We've had just a wonderful menu of all Canadian NHL matchups this week. Tonight's another.
Well, you know what? Hey, it's fun to watch Edmonton play. How much pressure is in Montreal? When the pressure is in Montreal, I guess it's like Edmonton to Toronto. It wraps into negativity. I don't think Montreal's a very good hockey team. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They're 9 points out right now. And as far as the Edmonton Oilers, I guess that's a question of when you're really riding two players, when you have average goaltending. I'm not sold on the Edmonton Oilers here or now. I think, unfortunately, and when we talk about rebuilds, this is about two players, about a couple of players coming through a system. That's not a very good hockey team, but on a nightly basis, there's no better player in the game than Connor McDavid. But I think the nerves of the Montreal market, really the play of Carey Price being kind of ground to the ground right now, I don't know what to predict, but I think a Montreal fan thought there was going to be a pushback in Detroit the other night. If there isn't tonight, I think we're going to start hearing the boo birds in Montreal.
Okay, so I'll just end on that. Do you expect changes? I mean, how many times you got to fire Claude Julien? When does Marc Bergevin walk the plank?
You know what? It's a real good question. It feels like ownership's really on board with it. When you look at their pro scouting, their trades, though, to be quite honest with you, they've done a really nice job. I'm just not sold on the drafting. I'm not necessarily sold on the future. They're certainly smallish up front. They do have some good young players coming, but I'm not sure we'll say either. And quite simply, Claude Julien is one of the best coaches in the business. So if you're not a Montreal fan, you'd probably be excited if they end up moving along from him. I don't think that's going to resolve anything. But I don't see the mix. I don't see, like you see Toronto when they went through this process, and it's documented from Tampa to Pittsburgh to Chicago to Washington. It's not perfect, but you can see a plan in place. And if you're an Edmonton or Montreal fan, I'm not sure about Edmonton as far as Montreal. I don't think long term. I think they're just going to be caught kind of in that mushy middle.
Wow. Simmer, thanks. Great update from the nation's capital. Appreciate it, my man. And thanks for the support. We'll talk to you down the road.
Anytime. Cheers.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.